Jensen Motors Limited was a British manufacturer of sports cars and commercial vehicles in Lyng, West Bromwich, west of Birmingham, England. Brothers Alan and Richard Jensen gave the new name, Jensen Motors Limited, to the Lyng commercial body and sports car body making business of W.J. Smith and Sons Limited in 1934. It ceased trading in 1976. Jensen Motors built specialist car bodies for major manufacturers alongside cars of their own design using engines and mechanicals of major manufacturers Ford, Austin and Chrysler. The rights to Jensen's trademarks were bought with the company and it briefly operated in Speke, Liverpool from 1998 to 2002. Under subsequent owners, a new version of the Jensen Interceptor was announced in 2011. It was planned to bring manufacture of that new model back to the former Jaguar motor plant in Browns Lane, Coventry. Jensen Brothers. In 1926 young Alan Jensen and his brother Richard Jensen built a new boat-tailed sporting body on one of the first chummy baby Austins. It was seen by Alfred Herbert Wild, chief engineer of Standard Motor Company. He persuaded Alan Jensen to join New Avon Body Company, a Standard Motor associate, and under Wildia Euro unregistered trademark S. Aegis Alan Jensen designed the first Standard Avon open two-seaters produced from 1929 to 1933. He went on to design two more cars for Avon, then moved with his brother Richard to Austin dealers Edgbaston Garage Limited, Bonbrook, in a building still standing next to the University of Birmingham campus. Edgbaston Garage, a car servicing business, had been bought for his son in 1929 by J.A.M. Patrick's father. Joe Patrick, involved in all fields of motorsport, was setting up a coach building operation. For Edgbaston, the Jensen brothers made handsome bodies for the new Wolseley Hornet and Hornet Special chassis. They were widely advertised as the Patrick Special. So in 1931 the brothers moved again and Edgbaston Garage became Patrick Motors Limited. The Jensen brothers had gone to work for lorry body maker W.J. Smith & Sons in Cutters Green in West Bromwich again to build bodies for small sports cars including more Wolseley Hornet Specials. This was a quite separate development which Smith named on their account Jensen Motors. Their own name was on the product. In 1934 Smith died and the brothers managed to buy a controlling shareholding in Smith & Sons. They later changed the name of W.J. Smith & Sons to Jensen Motors Limited. Smiths announced an open four-seater and a lower two-seater in May 1931, both to be known as Jensen Wolseley Hornets. They later expanded to build exclusive customized bodies for standard cars produced by several manufacturers of the day including Morris, Singer, Standard, as well as Wolseley. In 1934 they were commissioned by American film actor Clark Gable to design and build a car for him based on a Ford V8 chassis. The resultant car won them much acclaim and stimulated huge interest in their work, including a deal with Ford to produce a run of Jensen Fords with Jensen bodywork with a Ford chassis and engine. In 1934 they also started to design their first true production car under the name White Lady. This evolved into the Jensen S-Type which went into production in 1935. Commercial vehicles. In the late 1930s Jensen diversified into the production of commercial vehicles under the mark JNSN, including the manufacture of a series of innovative lightweight trucks, built with unrestricted aluminium alloys, for Reynolds Tube and the prototype for the articulated Gen Tug which went into production in the late 1940s. During World War II Jensen concentrated on the war effort and produced components for military vehicles including the turrets for tanks, and on the production of specialized ambulances and fire engines. After the war production of the Gen Tug thrived and Jensen also produced a new range of JNSN lightweight diesel trucks and chassis which were used for a variety of vehicles including Pantechnicons and buses. A handful of Jensen buses and coaches were produced for independent operators into the 1950s, with Perkins diesel engines, David Brown gearboxes, and bodywork by a variety of bodybuilders of the time, which had the distinctive large JNSN mark cut into the sheet metal on the front of the bus, below the windscreen. In the 1950s Jensen were chosen by the British Motor Corporation to build the bodies for the four-wheel drive Austin Gypsy. In 1958 they built a small number of Tempo minibuses, a German original design, under license. Sports cars. Production of cars ceased during the war years, but by 1946 a new vehicle was offered, the Jensen PW. Fewer produced since raw materials were carefully limited by the new government's central planning. Also in 1946 body designer Eric Neal joined Jensen Motors from Wolseley, and his first project was the more modern coupe which followed in 1950, named the Interceptor, which was built until 1957. In 1955, Jensen started production of Neal's masterpiece, the 541, which used the then revolutionary material of fiberglass for its bodywork. The 541 was replaced by another Neal design, the CV8 in October 1962, which replaced the Austin-sourced straight six of the previous cars with a 6-liter American Chrysler 5.8. This large engine in such a lightweight car made the Jensen one of the fastest four-seaters of the time. For its eventual replacement, the Interceptor, Jensen turned to the Italian coach builder, Carrozzeria Touring, for the body design, and to steel for the material. First displayed alongside the production CV8 FF in October 1965 and put into production in the second half of 1966, the body shells themselves were built by Vignale of Italy and later by Jensen. The same 383 cubic inches Chrysler wedgehead power plant was used in the earlier cars, with the later cars moving to the 440 cubic inches in engine. The Interceptor was offered in fastback, convertible and Cooper copyright versions. The fastback was by far the most popular, with its large, curving wraparound rear window that was hinged for access to the storage area, making the Jensen an early form of liftback. FF for Euro all-wheel drive and ABS equals, the Jensen Motors stand at the October 1964 Earls Court Motor Show displayed a Jensen FF car equipped with all-wheel drive and ABS as publicized but not displayed in February 1964. At the following show in October 1965 a production-ready CV8 FF was displayed, priced almost 50% more than the standard car and 3 inches longer. However, it remained a prototype, and instead the Interceptor-based Jensen FF entered production in 1966. The FF is apparently externally identical to the Interceptor, although it was 4 inches longer in the bonnet and it had a second row of air vents behind the front wheels. The extra letters stood for Ferguson Formula, Ferguson Research being the inventor of the full-time all-wheel drive system adopted, the first on a production sports car. Also featured was the Dunlop Maxeret anti-lock braking system in one of the first uses of ABS in a production car. Just 320 FFs were constructed and production ceased in 1971. Other projects. Austin A40 Sports, as one in a series of collaborations between Austin and Jensen, the Austin A40 Sports originated when Austin's chairman Leonard Lord, upon seeing the Interceptor, requested that Jensen develop a body that could use the A40 mechanicals. The resulting body-on-frame A40 Sports a Euro, which debuted at the 1949 London Motor Show a Euro, had been designed by Eric Neal, an ex-Wolseley stylist who had joined Jensen in 1946. During production, the A40 Sports aluminium bodies were built by Jensen and transported to Austin's Longbridge plant for final assembly. The A40 Sports had been intended as more of a sporty touring car and not a sports car per se, and over 4,000 examples were manufactured from 1951 to Euro 1953. Austin Healey 100. Although Jensen's design for a new Austin-based sports car was rejected by the British Motor Corporation in 1952 in favour of a design provided by Donald Healey, Jensen did win the BMC contract to build the bodies for the resultant Austin Healey 100 and the rest of the big Healey cars. At the end of 1960, Austin Healey cars occupied about 350 of the 850 men in Jensen's factory. Volvo P1800. In 1960, Jensen won a contract from Volvo to assemble and finish the bodies for their P1800 Cooper copyright. Pressed Steel manufactured the body shells at their Linwood plant in Scotland and shipped them to Jensen in West Bromwich to be finished, painted and trimmed and made ready for distribution. The first batch for evaluation came off the production line in May 1961. The engine and gearbox were from Sweden, the back axle from USA and the electrical system from Germany, otherwise the car was all British. By March 1962 1,100 men were busy in Jensen's West Bromwich works making Austin Healey bodies and Volvo and Jensen cars. By 1963 the contract was ended early due to quality concerns and P1800 production was moved to Gothenburg, Sweden. Sunbeam Tiger. In the early 1960s Jensen were also involved in the development and production of the Sunbeam Tiger. Jensen Healey Jensen was bought by Motors Limited, an industrial holding company in June 1959. Alan Jensen retired from the positions of joint managing director and alternate chairman in October 1964 though he remained on the board. Richard Jensen relinquished his appointment as joint managing director in November 1965 but remained chairman. Following disagreements Alan and Richard Jensen resigned from the board in 1966. Richard retired to Malta and died back in London in September 1977. Alan died in Brighton in 1994. In September 1967 Jensen announced they had been hit by the U.S. car safety regulations which were going to come into force the following January. They expected there would have to be many redundancies resulting from the drop in demand for the Austin Healey 3000 and Sunbeam Tiger though both had been modified to meet the regulations. At the end of the year they advised their shareholders that Austin Healey and Sunbeam Tiger contracts had now ended. An American management consultant, Carl Duer, replaced the chief executive. It was decided that from now on Jensen Motors would be a full-time car manufacturer. In mid-1968 following a disastrous 1967 year Motors decided to sell their automotive subsidiary whose products cost about the same as small houses. Current production rate was 12 Interceptors and FFs a week. It was bought by a merchant bank. The Norwegian-American West Coast car distributor Qvale became the majority shareholder in 1970 and brought in Donald Healey who was appointed chairman in April 1970 and they brought in a new chief executive in May. They were able to announce the new Jensen Healey in March 1972. By the end of May the next year 3,356 of the new cars had been manufactured but the factory's performance disappointed the owner and sales volume was mediocre. In October 1974 Qvale appointed himself chief executive as well as chairman. Production was cut back from 25 to 12 a week to match sales. A Jensen GT was announced in July 1975, a Jensen Healey with a Cooper copyright/estate body. Then the business's future came under threat which meant redundancy for 700 workers, two-thirds of its workforce. A receiver was appointed by the Bank of America in September. Qvale laid great emphasis on the part played by the unions in bringing about the downfall of the business. The financial pundits said that in his attempt to mass-produce a small sports car Qvale installed production capacity far in excess of market demand. The empty premises were auctioned off in mid-August 1976. Two new companies, Jensen Special Products and Jensen Parts and Service Limited, were created to pick up the pieces of Jensen Motors. JSP was created as a specialist engineering and design business from Jensen's development department. JP&S was created to provide parts and service to the existing Jensen customer base. JP&S then turned into a company called International Motors, who gained the UK franchise for Subaru and Maserati, as well as Hyundai from 1982. Both JSP and JP&S were bought by a holding company, Britco Holdings. In 1982 JP&S, with the rights to use the Jensen brand names, was sold to Ian Orford who put the Interceptor back into production as the Mk4. Jensen Parts and Service was renamed Jensen Cars Limited and 11 cars were made before the company was sold to Unicorn Holdings of Stockport and a MKV Interceptor was proposed but never materialized although a few more MKIVs were built. Revival hopes, a revival in 2001 was short-lived. By the end of 2002 production on their only model the A40,000 Singapore pounds V8 had ceased. After a £10 million investment, including Liverpool City Council and the Department of Trade and Industry, a two-seater convertible, the Jensen SV8 was launched at the 1998 British International Motor Show, with an initial production run of 300 deposit-paid vehicles planned at a selling price of £40,000 each, but by October 1999 it was confirmed that 110 orders had been placed. The new Liverpool factory in Spee commenced production in August 2001, but troubles with manufacture meant production ceased, with only 20 ever leaving the factory and another 18 cars left partially completed. The company went into administration in July 2002. The Jensen name and partially completed cars were later sold to SV Automotive of Chatterton, Oxfordshire, in 2003, who decided to complete the build of 12 of the cars, retaining the others for spare parts, and finally selling them for £38,070. In April 2010, Jensen International Automotive was founded. This new company will buy old Jensen Interceptors, and sell them as new ones after a complete restoration, with new engine and interior trim. In September 2011, CPP, a specialist sports car manufacturer, announced they were planning to make a new Jensen, expected to go on sale to the public sometime in 2014. The new Interceptor will be based around an all-aluminium chassis and will feature alloy panels, echoing the four-seat Grand Tourer layout of the much-loved original, according to the official press release. On the 25th February 2015, Autocar published a report stating that the Jensen name is officially being revived, with 2 models expected by 2016. The first model, shown in clay on the same article, shows a vehicle called the Jensen GT. This model will be built in bespoke numbers and cost around £350,000. Also in 2016, Jensen is expected to launch the successor to the famous Jensen Interceptor, called the Interceptor 2. These revival announcements are completely different to the ones announced by CPP in 2011 and are officially sanctioned by the company leading the project, the Jensen Group, who have said they have established complete ownership over the Jensen mark. The interim Jensen GT will be produced under an agreement between the Jensen Group and Jensen International Automotive, a small British company that builds modified Interceptor models. Jensen cars. See also, Austin Healey 3000, List of car manufacturers of the United Kingdom. Notes. References. Keith Anderson. Jensen. Haynes Publishing Group. ISBN 0-85429-682-4. Keith Anderson. Jensen and Jensen Healey. Sutton Publishing. ISBN 0-7509-1808-X. Richard Carver. A History of Jensen, The Chassis Data. Richard Carver. ISBN 0-646-03563-0. External links, Catalogue of the Jensen Motors Archives, held at the Modern Records Centre, University of Warwick, Jensen Motors Limited. Jensen Motors Limited website.